Just got finished looking at this what is his name? Tate, Andrew Tate,
Yeah.
Andrew Tate and Mohamed Hijab thing. And I will say, like I had said right before, he's a young guy, but I think that this is a better arena, an arena where he's giving advice to Muslims. He can use the Arabic, use the Quran, Hadith, and more importantly, he doesn't have any type of pushback. I guess because he's considered to be disagreeable, he considers himself disagreeable. I guess his first thing is to do pushback before giving the content and the beneficial information that he might have in him. So maybe that's more of his stick. But the reality is that in this situation, he said a lot of things that if he wouldn't have came ready for battle with Jordan Peterson, I think he would have gotten those things out smoother. But he was so ready for battle and for taking up for all the Muslim world by talking about this video that Jordan Peterson put out that he didn't focus on what he could have really given, because I think he gave way more in this. Also, I think that it was better because he let the man talk. And I think that that's the perfect interviewer, is the person who allows their guests to actually speak and be known, you know? Like we said before, the thing with Kanye and Carlson Tucker, he let him talk. The thing with Joe Rogan all the time, the key thing about Joe Rogan is he let his guests talk. When you let your guests talk, and a person has a chance to benefit or listen to your guests, which is who they came for a lot of times, and then you just throw little things in there, then it actually runs a little smoother. It actually gives you some time to think about what you want to say also. So that's my initial thought. As far as what was discussed, I'll just kind of briefly give my responses of what I thought when I heard certain things. So the first thing, of course, was about Andrew Tate's the response from Muslims about him converting to Islam. And like I said, I don't really know him, but apparently people have some issues with from what by the time I got to the end, apparently they felt he had some misogynist viewpoints. And, you know, I don't know, he must have been, I don't know what he was pushing, because he said that he wasn't someone who ever smoked drugs or did prostitution or anything like that, but some feminist ideas or some things like that. The whole point is that people are coming at his neck like this is some ploy, especially because he had just gotten cut from literally all of the social media platforms. And I saw from him before this, just the little clips that I saw. And then looking at this, it's like, I'm talking about since he became Muslim or when he was ready to become Muslim. He always had a respect for Islam, it seems. It was just a process that he had to go through, and some people, that's what they got to do. They got to always to wits end before they make that step that they already knew that they needed to make. So the whole point is that the key thing is that Mohammed Hijab said something that I had said before about other situations, which is that, like, once somebody become Muslim, it's three things that wipe everything away: coming into Islam, excuse me, coming into Islam, making Hajj, making hijrah or migrating from a place of terrible corruption or whatever, something that causes problems for your religion, to a place where you can practice religion right. And another, which is Ramadan to Ramadan and those types of things. There's very few things that get your slate wiped clean, okay? Because even Ramadan to Ramadan and Jumu'ah to Jumu'ah, it only gets away the small sins if you stay away from the big sins. But there are very few things that wipe away everything if you make sincere repentance. Very few. So the whole point is like, the Muslims that's coming at him after, like he said, the whole point is that Islam coming in, yuhdim ma qablahu, that it wipes away or destroys everything that came before it. If you know the context of the hadith came from some people that came and they said, look, we did all kinds of stuff, bad stuff before Islam. We went into Islam, but we want to know, what about all this stuff that we did? And that's when the Prophet said what he said. So the whole point is like, give that man a chance and stop pointing the finger and not thinking about all the fingers being pointed back at you, because the people who say it, it's people that's Muslim already been Muslim. He can already get his slate clean. What about yours? You should be thinking, I feel envy because of the fact I wish I could get my slate clean. Oh Allah, give me a chance to clean my slate and start on a fresh new page. Stop attacking him, because Allah just made a very, very important step for him, and inshallah it'll go move forward in a good way. But the worst thing is, what about you? What you gonna do to try to get clean? You know, so that was what I had to think. That's what I thought about that. Him getting banned from all social media. He said that he was just banned all of a sudden from all social media. There was no going through any steps or any process. He said first the metaverse banned him, Facebook and Instagram banned him, and then he got a message from YouTube saying he got one strike, He went to correct things about that strike, and before he knew it, he was totally banned from there. He banned from every platform. So he made some good points. And like I said, I don't know, but listening to the man talk, he sounds like somebody that could be a great danger. Remind me of Malcolm X from one angle when he's made the statement, "It's too much power for one man." It's a man that's wealthy, has his own agenda. Remind me of Kanye West again. Somebody who doesn't have to look to somebody for where they're going to get their bread and butter, and they can actually be their own man. And then he's pushing stuff that's against their agenda. And so, of course, they, like he said they keep things private. It's supposed to be that you have the right to speech, free speech, but they make these places private entities so that they can use that excuse to say, well, it's not a public, it's a private owned entity, so we can do what we want with it. And they can use whatever excuse they want on why they banned them. You know, so the whole point is that always when you start to speak truth, people are going to try to silence you. And if you're in a world where you're surrounded by people of evil and you're trying to say something good, then you can expect that's what happened to all the Anbiya and Rusul, all the messengers, prophets, anybody who ever came and tried to speak something good. When you speak against the system or against the powers that be in their agenda, of course they're going to try to silence you. So you have to be aware of that. But he was already aware of that, which is good. He talked about living in a matrix. And the idea that he meant was figuratively. And once he explained it, it was right. It's not like some conspiracy theory, but it's the idea. And it's so funny. I was just talking to Azak about this. The difference between his generation and my generation, me being about 15 years older or something like that than him, or 12 or 13 years older, is that I came up at a time before internet. So internet is not even an issue to me. And the whole point of that internet, why is it called internet? It's like a net that was thrown over everyone, a shabaka that's thrown over everyone and kind of got everyone in there. And the people who came from before that, like when I was growing up, we couldn't even get in touch with our parents. When we left out making supplication that God protect us. And our mom knew we was going to see us when we got back. And you talk about I was going to school, coming from school, going to work. I went out at 7 something in the morning as a teenager, and I came back at 10 o'clock at night because I had to go to school. After school, I had to travel from school an hour in order to get to work. And then I had to work, and then after work, I would have to come home. So it was just in the hands of Allah. And the reality is that when you got to a payphone, you call and, Mom, I just want to let you know I'm here. So someone said, okay, I'm on my way to work, Mom, I love you, and keep going. But it's different than now, where everywhere you go, which is something from the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he said that from the times of the signs of the last day, or the last day wouldn't come until you'll be able to check on your family from your hip. This is in Sahih Bukhari. The whole point is that time has come now where you can check on your family, see what's going on while you're in the middle of nowhere. When we came up, it was different. So we had to live a lot of real life experiences that the next generation didn't have to live, don't have to live. And so we experience life in a different way. His point of the matrix was, he said that by them being in there, they feel like they have that freedom, people of the next generation. But reality is that it's more police than anything, because they make you get the false, under the guise of freedom to be able to speak and do whatever you want, say whatever you want. But if as soon as you say something and you have some clout or influence and you say something against the system, you're going to get cut. That's what just happened to him. That's what just happened to Kanye. That's what happened to anyone. Can you imagine Jordan Peterson breaking from the matrix? Can you imagine how they would silence him? Like, because people with that much influence, it's like, you got rules to follow. You got a responsibility. I remember Public Enemy. When Public Enemy started getting to a certain status, and I remember him giving an interview and he said, I didn't realize when I was younger and we were writing this stuff, how many people follow every word I say. He said, until I got visits from those people. FBI came and visited him. And he said that they made it clear to me how much influence my words have. And that it made me cautious everything that I wrote, whose ear is going to be taking it in and what the effect that it can have. And so it made him very careful of the words that he said, because they'll ban you. So the whole point is you got to say it in a way where you understand, which is what they kept saying over and over again, because this was being streamed live. The whole point was we don't want to get the stream cut. So we're going to have to speak about some things in a way where people who know and understand. So that was the thing with that. The truth about liberalism and tolerance. Okay, so they were talking about how the issue of being liberal is liberal on the outside. Liberal when it comes to you can look however you want to look and they'll be tolerant of it. But you're not liberal as far as thought. If your thought process don't get along with their thought process, which is acceptance of everything, even if it's something immoral, If your process goes against that, or if your process is calling to more of a set way of morality, then they don't have no tolerance with that. They'll shut you down. So is it really liberal? And they kept saying that LWO, I think, the liberal world order, like this idea of you have to either accept everyone for all their immorality and everything else, or you're not liberal. So in that case, who wants to be liberal? If that's what it is, if its tolerance is that, who wants to be tolerant? So then when you go the other way, then you're labeled as non-tolerant, and there's all of this type of stuff. So whatever it is what it is, but stick to your morality. His journey to Islam. He was talking about how he was always raised, which was like most Christians, people who have Christians in their family. Like I said before, half of my family is Christian. And half of them became Muslim, like literally, just like that. And the whole point is that the reason why they're able to mix with each other without a problem, because they all have the same position still regarding spirituality. It's just that these are convinced that we should enter into Islam, and these are not quite convinced yet. But they're looking and they see that Islam is a good way. They never speak against Islam because they know it's the right way. Matter of fact, one of the oldest people in my family, when she became Muslim, which was literally 2 years before she died, it was one of the simplest things. She had watched all of her grandchildren, Muslim. And so one of her friends died, and her friend wasn't Muslim, the older woman. And so after they buried her, her son came to her, and her son said to her, like, you saw we just buried Miss such and so, and she wasn't Muslim. Do you understand that her son, because that person's children, a whole family became Muslim too. So you understand, like her son can't even pray for her grandchildren. Like once it's done, it's done. And so she sat back and she thought, and she said, well, what you mean it can't? What you mean? Said, you got to become Muslim and then we can make the prayer for you and know this and that. And said, you telling me all my children and grandchildren are Muslim and I know Islam is the truth, but if I die, you can't do the Muslim prayer for me? He said, how can we if you're not Muslim? And she sat back. This is the point. She sat there. She thought about it. This woman is 70-something years old, mind you. And she sat back and she took the cigarettes out of her pocket and threw the cigarettes down on the table. And she said, that's the only thing that's kept me from accepting Islam. She said, I was always taught that when you enter into something, you enter into it wholeheartedly. She said, and I've tried everything I can to get off of these cigarettes so I can become Muslim, and I can't do it. Her son looked at her and said, that's all you waiting for? Do you know how many Muslims in the Arab world smoke cigarettes? She's like, that's not how I was raised. You go in properly or you don't go in. He said, it's more important for you to go in and we'll deal with that later than afterward. And sure enough, she became Muslim. She lived for 1.5 years. They sent me pictures of her going to the Eids and everything, full of a garment. He would go over there and lead her in Salah because she was too old to be able to memorize a bunch of Salah. She was barely walking, so she had to make Salah sitting down, made all the Salahs and everything, and she got rid of that habit of cigarettes before she died. The whole point is the steps to Islam start very young. And he said that it started very young, that he understood the concept of the higher being, the concept of God, and the concept of being respected, that God's word is supposed to be respected, that God's supposed to be revered, it's supposed to be feared, all that stuff. All that stuff is a lot of times in different Christians and Muslims. It's just about taking that step and something to hold you back from taking that step. So his whole point was it was just the issue of getting to the point of taking a step. And the good thing is he had on camera, apparently, many times, I haven't seen them, but he said, I've talked before many times about how I respect Islam and that Islam seems to be the only religion. He said, but I was born and raised as a Catholic. I'm born and raised as a Christian family, everything. He said, but I would look and I know what Christian values are supposed to say, but everybody claimed to be Christian and they ain't doing nothing of it. But with Muslims, I would see how they stand up for the things that I know we supposed to be standing up for. So that's what made him get down or admire Islam and end up becoming Muslim at the end, which is his beginning. Then we talked about the issue of only Allah being worthy of worship. So he was talking about his reverence to God and that all these other things is like they're gods, little gods or whatever that can pull you, but you have to know that that's the only one. And so Mohamed Hijab brought a good point, which is this is what La ilaha illallah really actually means. La ma'budu bihaqqin illallah. That there's nothing worthy of your worship, your submission, your dedication like that except Allah. There are many things that can call you to give that dedication, devotion, and worship almost to them, or worship, but there's nothing that's due that except Allah. So that's the whole point of when you have to take that shahada to enter into Islam. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah means I bear witness that he's the only one that I'm giving my worship to, even though these other things try to call me to worship him. Wa ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah, and I'm going to do it the way that Muhammad taught us. So each messenger, it was the same thing. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa anna Isa Muhammad wa anna Isa Abdullah Rasulullah. That I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and Jesus is the messenger of Allah when Jesus was there. Moses when Moses was there. Meaning, I bear witness that there's no God but Allah. I submit and commit myself to Him, and I'm going to do it the way that you teach me or the way that you show me, because you're the best example for me. The whatever messenger at the time. He's speaking against hedonism, which is the idea of always just enjoying yourself and like just being lost in your desires. Okay, he made a statement. I have to just find it. Mohamed Hijab made a statement that was just a deep statement, because when he said it, it came from George Orwell, but it was a statement that literally is throughout the whole Quran, is the proof of it. He made a statement. He said, George Orwell said, the more society moves away from the truth, the more they hate people who speak it. And like literally, that's what happened with every messenger. As the people got so corrupted, when they came to speak the truth, it's like, get him out of here, or cast him out, or silence him, or whatever, kill him, because nobody wants to hear these truths. All right, nobody wants to hear these truths once they're so far away, and their hearts are to the point that their hearts are corrupted, and they don't want to hear those truths. Also, he was talking about how he never felt comfortable going to concerts and things like that. And it was interesting he brought that up, because it's Muslims that don't get this yet. And he realized with whatever fitrah he had in him before Islam, that he said, I never like going to these big concerts or whatever with these people on stages and stuff, and hundreds of thousands of people are just, or tens of thousands of people are just calling their name and this and that. He said, because he said that made me cringe inside, because it's like they're worshiping him. It's like they're making him an idol. And literally, that's what they do. He didn't even have the right words for it, but we know in Islam, literally, that's what it is. And so that's the reason why they call them stars. And it's like, you go and you give them the worship and the adulation or whatever that you ain't supposed to be coming together, congregating to give to Allah. And that was his whole point. And it was like, wow, this dude, people talk whatever they talked about him, but the more he speaks, the more you realize his fitrah was in line with Islam the whole time. Like he said, didn't drink, he said, all I did was smoke some cigarettes, drink a little alcohol, and work. But he said, I never did drugs. He said, never even did steroids. He said, I never did all those, never prostitution, never paid for sex. None of this type of stuff. And so it's like, okay, some people, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because the more you meet people like this, the more you'll see is so many people that Allah preserves them inside, and you'll think something else because of their outside, but you don't know what Allah is preserving, and He might switch everything around. There's a statement from the Prophet ﷺ where he said, love who you love, honin mat. Love who you love, but be careful how much you love them, because you might have to hate them, yawmin mat. One day you might have to hate that person for Allah's pleasure, just like you love them for Allah's pleasure. And the opposite. Hate who you hate, honin mat. Hate who you hate, with being careful, because you might have to love them, yawmin mat. On one day, the day might come where you have to love them for the pleasure of Allah. And so that's the situation with people like this. And that's the reason, like I said, again, I keep mentioning these three people, because these are three people that I see in my eyes that they were ready. One has got down, one is stepping like they're trying to get down, one came to look like they're looking to get down probably, or looking to understand more, and we just have to be careful. Like I said, the three people, again, this dude, he already got down, and Tate, Anderson Tate? Is that his name?
No, his name is Andrew.
Andrew Tate, he done already got down. Kanye, he done took his steps, but he done got down with Christianity, but he got away from the filth that he was in, and he looked like he's still looking to do his best and looking for more. And then, like I said, Jordan coming and looking for answers, but you could look in his heart and in his soul. He's looking for something. He realized, just like this dude, Andrew said, that he's reached the pinnacle of everything he can achieve in his world, and still there's a hole there. Still there's something near that hasn't been filled, and I got everything, so what is it? And so with these types of people, when they reach this level and they're still looking, you know what the answer is, but they might not know yet. And so when they find out, you embrace them. Until they find out, you give to them, and you hope to Allah that their chest will be opened up, or their heart will be opened up to that which is best. He did bring home the point, Mohamed Hijab brought home the point of the daily routine. He was talking about the daily routine, Andrew Tate, and talking about how at the time he gets up and that he's always, he has a problem sleeping, he's always working, exercise, or whatever. And he made sure he slipped in there the importance of salat, which was very, very important. I loved how he did that. He said he keeps himself founded because he looks forward to that salat, to that prayer and connection to Allah 5 times a day, and it keeps him humble, keeps him grounded. And so I was happy on how Mohamed Hijab, like I said, the way he dealt with himself in this situation was totally opposite of how he dealt with himself in the other situation. And I think maybe because he didn't feel as there was any threat there, the dude become Muslim, so it was more embracing, and so you was able to see more benefit from him than I saw in the first one. The first one was like he was ready to fight, and you can't be like that in any situation when people are coming to learn from you. You just can't do it. So it was actually way more beneficial in this one. Views on gender. He made a bet, like, once again, this dude ain't read nothing about ليس الذكر كالأنثى. He ain't read nothing about للرجال نصيب مما اكتسبوا وللنساء نصيب مما اكتسبن وصلوا الله من فضله. He ain't read nothing like that. But the thing that amazes me with people who are not Muslim or just becoming Muslim is when they say all these things out their mouth and you got the Quran and Hadith for everything. So he's talking about gender, and he said people have a problem with him and the whole feminist thing, but all he said was that genders, the male and female, are different and have different responsibilities or different strengths, and each one should embrace the strengths that they were given, as opposed to trying to be the way the opposite. He said that if they do that and come together, then they're like a formidable force. He said, but when they're separate and each one trying to be the other, you're going to have problems. And he said something like this now, and then he said it later on. But the one he said now, he said, for example, if you had an accountant and a tailor, he said, and the accountant did the accountant work, the tailor did the tailor work. He said, they'll come up and they will make all kinds of success. He said, but if you had an accountant and a tailor and they said, okay, so we can make it easier on each other, I'm going to do half accountant and half tailoring, and you're going to do half accountant and half tailoring, it's going to be all messed up. He said that the hymns will be all messed up, the money will be all messed up, because each one didn't stick to what they were best at. So and he's right. Everybody has to know their role and what they're best at and then excel in that role, which comes back to what we were just talking about, is that everybody just kind of knowing their role, knowing what they were gifted with, and then just get out there and excel. Don't let nothing hold them back. And so then he said later on, but I'm going to bring it up now, they said it's like if you had two islands, and I think Mohamed Hijab was the one who brought this up. He said you had two islands. He said on one island, no, it was Andrew Tate, because he was talking again about the gender roles. He said on one island, and he said this because there's a lot of primitive communities out there, and you look at the primitive communities, and they're flourishing just fine, doing what they do. He said you have one island that they know that the men are supposed to be the men. They go out and hunt and do this and that. The woman's supposed to be a woman, take care of the children and do what they got to do, and all the things that their strengths. And then you got the other island where they're mixing gender roles up and all that type of stuff. So which island do you think is going to be the best? Is going to be they're going to live the smoothest? The ones where they stick to their roles, okay? And so the whole point or the whole idea is that know what your role and your strength is. And the key point is that the people who are powerful, they do that. The men go to work and do their work and know they have to protect and take care of their family. The woman stay home and take care of the family, and they also have jobs and do what they're going to do, but not something that'll pull them away from what needs to be done in order to keep the foundation of the house rolling. And so one brings in the income for the house, the other one makes sure the children, the family, and everything is rolling, and whatever extra that you do. But that's what keeps it rolling. But then they push to us the whole idea of a two-income family, and like you said, a two-income family, the idea of it is to have two incomes in order to raise the income bracket so that the government gets more money. More income or more people working, more money that they get. And they don't care about you destroying your homes, but that's what's happening. Who's raising your children? Your children are being raised by the schools that they put in place, the internet that they put in place to corrupt them at home, and then you talk to them for a few minutes when you get home, and your little talking is not going to change. That's the reason why they're divorcing parents now. That's the reason why children literally can divorce their parents now. Because they're being raised for the government and the system they're going into. They don't want to hear what you got to say. We talked about the disastrous aftermath of feminism. And the reason why they brought this up is because the idea of feminism was originally brought because it was just talking about the female's right to vote. But like everything else, everything that comes, once it's just like BLM, once there's an agenda that people are going to support, then the evil powers that be come and they stuff all kinds of stuff inside of there. And so they decided they were going to stuff all these other things into feminism that then messed the whole world up. But the reality of feminism is that those people who were preaching, the women themselves who were preaching feminism in the 60s and 70s and all of this other stuff, they talked about it 10, 20 years later, and they said that it didn't work. It was like the worst thing because of what we just said. Family structures messed up. They said 79% of women wish that they could just leave their job right now. 80% of women talk about the stress that they have in their jobs. It goes back to what we had said before about Trump and Clinton. And there was a bunch of Democrat women But they said they can't. They said they can't. Can't vote for because they were Christian women, strong Christian women. They said we can't vote for Clinton. We love Clinton. We love women. But they said reality is that the scriptures teach that a woman shouldn't have that much responsibility and burden on them. That's not a woman's place. That's not what she should be doing. It's going to be too much on her. And people wanted to give it. Well, y'all women saying that? It's reality if you're just going to deal with reality. You know, some women ain't made for it. Clinton might be one of the few women that could have possibly got in there and using her entourage around her or her advisors could have possibly pulled it off. But it's not something that would position that you're supposed to be putting a woman in because of the stress that comes with it. You know? So that was a very good point. The whole issue of everyone knowing their place, knowing their role, and you perfect your role and as guidance, which is the verse that he referred to, as guide from his bounty in order for you to complete your role properly. And don't try to look after trying to get their role or this one trying to take this role. Know who you are, what your strength is, and you excel in it. Okay, so the pros and cons of him being canceled. One of the pros is that he's disconnected from becoming Muslim. He got disconnected from the matrix, and maybe that was a thing that was perfect for that to happen at the time, is that it might have been that final thing to make him just do like we said before. Sometimes Allah, they say God works in mysterious ways. That's what the Christians say when we were growing up. And the Muslims pretty much say the same thing as far as the hikmah of Allah. You just can't grasp the hikmah of Allah. But reality is that sometimes he'll put great difficulties in your path just to get you to do something that you already knew that you were supposed to be doing anyway. So he's done what he's done. He's taken that step. And so now he's going to deal with his whole life in a fresh way. He's moved over to Rumble, and he can take whatever videos he want to take, cut off the rest of them, and move forward on his new path. But the whole point is that with everyone, when you have a chance to have your slate wiped clean, whether it was him or whether it's people like us that's already Muslim, we make Hajj, this and that, make sure you take advantage of the opportunity. You might not get it again. You make Hajj one time, you come back clean because it's accepted, and you think, okay, you go right back to what you was doing, then what was the purpose? And you think, okay, I can make another Hajj. That might be the only chance you get. Somebody stepping into the fold of Islam, that's the only chance they're going to get. They're going to be able to step into it a second time and get that reward. So when you get these opportunities, make sure you use them to your benefit. The significance of optimism. We're talking about the idea of, they were saying how it seems like no matter what happens to this man, Andrew Tate, seems like he keeps going. He doesn't let it knock him down or whatever. And he was saying like you have to have perpetual optimism or consistent optimism or whatever the word he used. Because the people will knock you down, situations in life will knock you down, but that's life. And once again, when he's saying that, all I can think in my head is وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِنَ الْخَوْفِ وَالْجُوعِ. That ayah, that verse, that surely we're going to test you with something of fear and hope and depletion of your wealth and of your health and of your fruits of your labor, and give glad tidings to those who are patiently persevering. There's no way to avoid difficulty in life. That's what comes with life. The issue is that difficulty going to make you stronger and build your faith, or is that difficulty going to knock you down? So Mohamed Hijab did bring a good point there. He said, listen, he said, just like I keep saying, every time it's like, yo, was a hadith for that too? Was a hadith for this too? And he was talking about the hadith where the Prophet ﷺ said that when you go through difficulty, you're patiently persevering through it, that one of three things you're getting, if not all three. Either you're getting sins knocked off from the difficulty, you're getting reward for it, or you're raising your level in the hereafter. So the whole point is that it's a win-win situation for a believer because it builds your faith, you know. And the biggest thing, which he didn't say, is that when you go through those difficulties, you have to look and make introspection, and you have to see if it's something that I did wrong, then I got to implore God for forgiveness for it and correct it. And if I know that what I'm doing is right, still asking for more guidance to be in His pleasure. But the whole point is it makes you introspect. All right. Yeah, I gotta hit these 2 points. Got to. All right, so Mohamed Hijab, he said, listen, you know, we understand that you're forgiven for all your sins or whatever. He said, but the two things that they attack you the most about, I have to ask you about. Or no, he said, what are some of the things that they attack you about from your past that you've reflected on since you become Muslim? He said two things. Number one is, he said that they said that woman is a woman is a man's property. And he said, I did never use the word property ever.
He did.
Well, he said, well, a woman belongs to a man.
Yeah, no, he did.
He did use property?
Yeah, a lot.
Okay, All right, maybe in the
Woman
first
is bad
time.
now.
Okay, maybe the first time he said belongs, and maybe that's what he's referring to, and then afterward he said, I don't
Maybe,
know.
no, he said that.
Okay. Okay, yeah, so I
But
don't
he's
know.
just now trying to like be better, maybe. So.
Okay, that's the point. That's the proof that I don't know anything about him. I'm just taking him on his word. What he said, he said when he first said that, he was actually referring to the biblical steps or process of marriage. He said that in the biblical process of marriage, that the husband, I mean, the father has to be there, a father figure. He takes his daughter down the aisle, gives his daughter to this man that's sitting there. It's a husband, and when he gives the daughter now belongs to the man, meaning responsible for protection and providing. And he said that the woman goes to him, even takes his name, which is really interesting because in Muslim culture, a woman don't take a man's name. The woman keeps the name of their lineage, of their father. But in a man's culture, I mean, in the Christian culture, they take even the name of the husband. And that's usually what would only happen with slaves. So that's actually a pretty deep point because all the names that we have, we got from being slaves of some other man, and so we got these American names from being their slaves, so that everybody know that that's who we belong to. The woman gets that in the Christian culture or in the Western culture. She has to change her last name to the name of the husband, so it becomes Mr. and Mrs. John or Mr. and Mrs. Smith, even though her name used to be Whitmer. It changes to Smith now, or like this. So the whole point is, he said, I was talking about that and talking about now he's responsible for providing, taking care of her and all of that. So it's like he's responsible. He owns that responsibility. This is what he said. Now, of course, I don't know the context. I'm just telling you what he said. But that's what he said he meant. He said, but people started taking it all out of context or whatever. And so he started fighting with them. But that's what he originally was talking about. A woman bearing responsibility for sexual assault, which I thought was very, very deep because I've always felt this also from a different angle. I was raised around a bunch of strong women, and I'm saying this for a reason, because the woman I was raised around used to always teach the girls when they started hitting puberty and stuff that your body is a temple. Be careful who you have around you. Be careful and don't let yourself, like I think I said before, the milk, why would somebody pay for the cows if you're giving the milk away for free? Or, make sure that you understand that you're something precious. Thing is that there's been whole generations that weren't taught that. When I was growing up, my father bought my mother his book, and I forgot who the lady was, but it was a lady who had practiced martial arts and defense. And she had all kinds of pictures in the book on how you're supposed to stand in the street, how you're supposed to stand if you're on the phone, because it's back in the times of payphone. Don't stand with your back towards, but stand like this. When you're opening your car, how you're supposed to be. And the whole point was to teach women how to be more aware of their environment. And then like with my mother, and this is what I say about everyone, every woman and every female in your family, you have to train them with self-defense. My mother used to go with my father and learn how to shoot guns. So in a situation where my brother got jumped by a bunch of teenagers or whatever, they was like high school or whatever, so they was like grown men. It was bigger than my mother, and they busted my brother over the head with a bottle or whatever, and she came out with her gun. She came out with her gun to the side and said a few choice words to him. I was right there because we was fighting or whatever, and she came out with her gun to the side and like, what? And they're like, yo, she got her escort, yo, go get my, but they started running. And she was ready to bang, and they know because they knew how our family was. So the whole point is that you got to train your woman to know how to defend themselves. Saying to them that you can't be a person a teacher woman and the people that's connected to you, you can't be that person that decides at night that you're going to go and dress up in the most provocative thing and then go to some bar or some club, meet some dude that you don't know from a can of paint, connect with them, drink with them, go back to their house, take drugs with them, get loose, and then expect that if something goes down that you were 0% responsible. You have to deal with the fact that these things are part of what's going to get me in this situation, so I have to be responsible enough before it happens to not let them happen. He said that's what he meant by a woman having responsibility, that you can't imagine that a woman has zero responsibility with the issue of sexual assault. So the whole point is being careful and cautious because he said, I was talking to some feminists, and the feminist was like, you should just teach men not to rape people. And it's like, what do you think that people have been doing since the beginning of time? But reality is that you're going to have that man, and even if he tries to live halfway decent, if he's in a situation like that, he wouldn't know what to do. So imagine the people that's all they set out to do. And they come to places where women put themselves at that risk. Like, so the whole point is that teaching the ones that's connected to you to make sure that they live and carry themselves differently. So those are the 2 points that I thought was intriguing because I don't know the past and I don't know how they're taken out of context. But it was like, okay, it just showed to me that even those ideas or concepts that he had, even if he did wrong with them, as it's being explained to me now, he did wrong with them. The idea or the concept, he's starting to grasp and see what was good from it, and hopefully leave off what's bad and move on what's good and like that. But the whole point is introspection. The person who already been Muslim, introspection for themselves. The person who's brand new Muslim, introspection. Constant introspection, constant taking account of yourself so you can be a better person. And this is one of the greatest steps that someone can take. So make dua for your brother. Make supplication for your brother that he'll be successful. Because people talk all this stuff about him, but if he's not successful, what does that say? Is that going to make you happy? To see that he's not successful? I told you so? Where's the benefit come from that? Always have good thoughts about your brother and always hope that people have good thoughts about you, because that positivity is what keeps us going up. All right. I'm going to close out right here. But like I said, so Mohamed Hijab, the same thing. I think that he's better in situations like this where he is not going to be on defense. And I think that in the future, as he gets older, I think he'll understand that every situation or many situations when someone comes to sit down and talk to you is more like this. So just take it like that and you'll actually be able to get more benefit through. And Allah takes care of everything else. And it reminds me of the hadith, and that's what I'm going to close out on. The situation where there was the Prophet and Abu Bakr sitting there, and the man came and he was going at Abu Bakr about this and about that, and he was still sitting there not saying nothing, so the Prophet stayed sitting there. And then the man said something apparently that was the last straw for Abu Bakr. So Abu Bakr stood up and started going back at him, and the Prophet got up and left. So after Abu Bakr went back at him, he went to the Prophet and he asked the Prophet, he said, Ya Rasulullah, the man was coming at me, coming at my neck, and I was sitting there and you remained sitting there with me. He said, as soon as I stood up to go back at him, you left. He said, because as long as you were sitting there, it was an angel there that was protecting you and taking care of you. He said, but when you stood up, that angel left. He said, so I left because I don't like to be around places where they're not angels. So the whole point is that be careful of your situations. Be careful to make sure that everything that you do it in the best way. And don't be one of those people that chase the blessing and the angels away from you. But there's a very thin line between having that blessing and not having that blessing. Where Abu Bakr, there was just some standing up and saying something in response. Be very careful and just live your life, treading your life in a way where you get the most blessing that you can. All right, till next time.